Welcome back, everybody, to Business Talk, the show where we dive deep into the industries that keep our world moving. I'm your host, DDA, and in today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Alena Rivera. She's the owner of Exit Realty Premier Legacy. Good afternoon, Alena. How you doing?
Hello, good afternoon, Didier. I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Again, you're very,
Again, love to
yes,
be here. Love to talk real estate with you. My favorite thing
absolutely.
to do.
And love having you as well.
Thank you.
So, listeners, in each episode, our guests share practical tips and valuable advice that can help you navigate life and stay ahead in your own journey. If you're enjoying this content, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stick around until the end because Alena is going to share a great, powerful story that she's had with the customer, and it actually highlights the impact of her services for you guys that are listening. So with that being said, we're actually going to talk a couple different things. We're going to go into a little bit of background, but we're going to move more forward in discussing market trends and insights as it affects real estate, advice for buyers, advice for sellers. You know, you guys out there definitely want to know what's going on up to date with the market. And we're probably going to talk a little bit about local knowledge. So with that being said, Alena, take it away. Let's
Yeah,
start off with
all
maybe a
right.
little background, and then we can
Sure.
go into market trends, and I'll have a couple questions to ask
Sure.
you.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I've been in the industry, I would say for about 15 years now, with my experience between starting in Minnesota with a top broker over there to, moving down to the Orlando, Central Florida area. And, just going through the whole process of being a real estate agent to then wanting to continuously grow and set new goals, and became an owner a few years ago of an exit franchise in Maitland, and then I branched off and I started another brokerage, Exit Realty Premier Legacy in Orlando. So for the last 3 years, I've been an exit owner, franchise owner, and I can't say enough about how blessed and just what the experience has been, how much it's taught me. It's not easy, but just keep on going
Well,
and growing.
yeah, congratulations. And again, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, correct?
That's right.
So let's get into some market trends and insights. You know, how would you describe the current real estate market in the area?
Yeah. So I mean, we're still moving, right? We still have sellers that need to sell, buyers that need to buy. I do love this industry because there's always work for us. Or we're always busy if we're, really working our business. And yeah, we have more houses, more inventory right now in the Central Florida area than we've seen since, pre-COVID. So more houses are sitting on the market a little longer. I would say average number of days that they're staying on the market before they actually go under contract would be anywhere from like 45 to sometimes even up to 90 days we're seeing in certain areas that they're sitting until, the right buyer comes along. And we are seeing a lot of price decreases or corrections, if you will. We're seeing those prices kind of,
Level off?
slowly level off, right? And
Hmm.
correct to what the market value was again pre-COVID, because we went through that crazy competitive, over asking price and bidding. And, there's although I still do see some bidding wars in certain locations. It's all about the location, right? Where they're purchasing, where they're looking. Recently, I sold a home in Longwood, Sweetwater area, and I would say there are probably 10 to 12 buyers for every home we were looking at because they didn't stay on the market, right? So
Right.
as we were looking, they were going off the market. It was like in the $600,000 price range too. So
Int-
we're talking over 500,000, and there's still competitive offers happening in certain areas.
So
Desirable.
you've kind of touched on this a little bit, Elena, when you talked about buyer's market, seller's market, or something in between right now. So that was interesting that you kind of mentioned that too. But are there any trends that you're seeing right now in home prices, inventory, or interest rates?
Mhm. Trends, I mean, so we've kind of been played with, I would say, for our interest rates, right? We were expecting them to go drop down to the low sixes, high fives, but they've remained steady, I would say above 6.5% for the, average conventional buyer right now. So with interest rates, yeah, we're still in the, the high sixes. And with prices, depending on the area, so
Right.
it's really important that it's that the agents are doing their work and their due diligence with pricing fairly competitively, not overpricing, because that's part of our problem is why these houses are sitting for so long is they're not priced fairly. They're not priced based on the other houses, comparable homes in their neighborhood, what those have recently sold for. The data does not lie, right? So as much as the
Right.
seller thinks that their house may be worth 50,000 more than what the last home sold for, the data doesn't lie. So
That's
it's
not
really
all
important.
right. And it's not always the case as well.
Right.
There are listeners or, people who are listening to the show as well that, maybe are first time home buyers, right?
Mhm.
We have those as well out there, people looking to buy a home for the first time. What should they do or what should they know? Any kind of knowledge you want to give them in terms of in terms of jumping into today's market, what to
Yeah,
look for?
yeah, absolutely. Would love to. Thank you. So most importantly, right, like look for the expert guidance. Look for the realtors that will help guide them through. If they don't have a realtor, they can always come to me. Or our Orlando Realtor Association has a lot of them as well. But my team here at Exit, we love to guide because it's not just the process of finding a realtor and looking at houses, but it's getting connected with the right team, right? You have your lender involved. So that lender needs to be fitting for your needs, based on your schedule, for the buyer's schedule. Are they available? Are they communicating promptly? But also with the lender side too, it's important for them to get pre-approved, right? They need that pre-approval or pre-qualification letter. Actually, no, let me take that back. Pre-approval letter, which means
Right.
they've gone through the process of verifying their documents, their taxes, their employment, their debt to income, all of that. The lender will do that to then accurately or more accurately say, look, based on what I'm seeing here, based on the documents you've provided me, you are qualified for up to, let's say, 400,000. However, while they may qualify for 400,000, they mostly want to know what their budget is. Like, what are they comfortable paying per month, right? In affordability, how much do they want to keep their budget at? Because then that will, determine what price of home they should be looking for. Because there's also, they gotta have to factor in, I think a lot of people forget that there's also property
Mm.
insurance, property
Electricity.
taxes, HOA, like
Hmm.
all those things add on to the mortgage as well. So it's important to really do the math, but again, working with the right team to be able to identify what is the perfect home, what is the perfect price range for that family.
And also outside of the mortgage, I mentioned electricity,
Yes,
water,
all those,
sewage. Like there's so many, I mean,
right.
trash, all these things that come that play
Exactly.
as
Yeah,
well.
they say to have at least 6 months in reserves, for in case anything goes wrong at the house. Plumbing issues, roof leak.
Yeah,
You never know.
I think that's it. You never know. So that's
Hmm.
very well stated. Are there any common mistakes you see buyers are making right now?
I think the biggest one is not really knowing what they're qualified for. So not going through the process of submitting their documents, right? They're just doing that online application that says, tell me how much you make, tell me how much you owe, and then boom, they're issued this pre-qualification letter, and then they're going out shopping. And I think that's another reason why we're seeing a lot of houses pending offers fall through because that buyer wasn't successfully pre-approved or accurately pre-approved,
Accurate.
right?
Yeah,
They submitted an
pre-approved.
application and the lender just said, here you go shopping for a house at this rate, without really knowing, like, okay, what can you afford per month based on, again, all those factors, HOA, taxes, insurance.
Yeah, because it definitely all adds up. So what's
Hmm.
your take on for a buyer that's wanting to buy now versus waiting for market conditions to improve? What,
Oh, I say
what
go
say you?
go buy now. Right now we also have so in addition to being a buyer's market, right? Houses are sitting longer on the market. Sellers, they're selling for a reason, whether they're severe, highly motivated and need to move tomorrow, or, they're just willing, they're more willing right now to offer sellers concessions. So I'm seeing a lot of sellers, pay for closing costs to help put down, down payment money, be generous when it comes to fixing certain things and that come up in the inspection, especially if it's related to the 4 points, your roof, your AC, your HVAC, your plumbing, and your electrical work. If there's anything wrong with, any issues or safety hazards that come up with those, I always say go for it. Negotiate, right? Because now is the time. We're also seeing, people not being able to afford their mortgage payments, so they need to sell. So getting out of that before they go into foreclosure.
Right.
We're also seeing an increase in short sales happening right now, where they owe more on their house. Their mortgage is more than what their house is worth. So there's a lot happening, which gives the advantage to the buyer. And additionally, we have Hometown Heroes, which is a down payment assistance program where they're giving up to $30,000 to qualified buyers to be
Wow.
able to purchase that home. So there's a lot of resources out there. It's really just a matter of, again, working with the right people that know about the resources and know how to negotiate, that know how to look for the homes that have been sitting on the market maybe 90 days or a little more motivated at that point, where it's easier to ask for that seller's credit or ask for the sellers to buy down the rate to make the monthly payment more affordable.
Yeah, that's well stated. You know, let's talk about advice for sellers. What's the best way for a seller to prepare their home for a fast sale?
So definitely declutter, right? I would say declutter, less is more. I don't personally too, I'm very simplistic, right? My eyes
Right.
go crazy when I go in and I see things
Hmm.
everywhere. So you really want to, by getting it ready, you want to deep clean, declutter. I would even say in certain areas, if you need a fresh paint of coat, um, fix little electrical things. If you can, go to IKEA and get a nice, cute little fixture to replace this old-fashioned one in the
Right.
entranceway, because
Right.
it's all about, that first appeal, that wow,
First
providing that
appearance.
wow
Right.
factor.
Hmm.
Exactly, right? So walking in, like, what does it smell like? Is it clean? What is it, like, is it, completely welcoming and wide open? Or are there things everywhere that it's like, oh my gosh, there's too much?
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, don't invest in, unless it's necessary. There's something with plumbing or something major, but I would say don't invest in,
Right.
redoing your kitchen and your flooring and all of that, because, that's always a way to negotiate too. I like to price it accordingly, because I know when a buyer walks in, they're going to say, I need to replace this carpet. I need to replace the bathroom, so we already, are discounting that for the price. And
Yeah.
then,
And
by looking at the analysis, they can see that it's true. So I think that's, important for, sellers to really know what's happening in their area, to really know what the homes are selling for in their particular neighborhood and community, right? Because every community, every subdivision
it's different.
is different from one
I,
block to another.
I like how you said that. I was my other question was how important is the pricing strategy right
Mhm.
now? And you kind of mentioned on that too as well, which is
Yeah, I
good.
I would like to add, so
Yeah.
definitely, like if it's overpriced, because I know some are like, oh no, I've seen it happen where, they know that the AC might need some work, or they might need new carpet or something. So they in their minds they want to start higher because they know that people are going to negotiate, right? But that's not always the smartest thing to do. Again, price it fairly with the market, because then people see like, oh, based on the comparables in
Hmm.
the area, this house is priced fairly. And then you can go to negotiations from there. Right. But also what I've seen work is in some cases we've listed it a little under market value, because then that draws in attention and it brings that multiple offer situation where then you're getting a little more than what you asked for, instead of having to lower the price. Because I've seen a lot of price reductions happening recently too.
Recently.
Yes, a lot.
And that makes sense based on where we're at right now.
Mhm.
Are there any hidden gems or underrated areas buyers should be looking at?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so in the Orlando area, right? The closer you are to Orlando, the more expensive it's going to be. However, there are certain areas that are a little more affordable. But what I'm seeing is, anywhere near railroads, any new divisions coming in, any new planning developments happening, I think it's smart to purchase in that area, because the housing market's going to boom. They say too, if you see a Publix coming in, like, be ready, because they know like that's going to be a neighborhood, the clientele they want to attract, right? Because they expect the houses to appreciate and go up in value over time.
That's interesting you say that. What about hospitals?
Hospitals as well. Hospitals, so like St. Cloud, Lake County, Deltona, DeLand out there, Sanford, with the railway system there as well. Lots of new developments coming. Just think about like where is there land on the outside of what we already have?
Right.
That's where it's expected to grow and appreciate. But right now you can get it more affordable. You can even buy a new house right now, new construction home for in the low 300s.
Wow.
So yeah, low 300s. It's housing is definitely more affordable. However, the interest rate makes it a little more challenging to get
Correct.
our buyers qualified. So we're seeing a lot more co-signers happen, are involved with the contract.
Oh, I understand that.
Mhm.
So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I was kind of mentioned about a story that I'd like for you to share that kind of really, you sat back and you said, wow, I really helped this family, I helped this individual. And it can really, what's the word I'm trying to, it really validates, right? That what I'm doing is making a difference. Anything
Yeah.
that stands out?
Yeah, so I mean, lots of stories, right? I've helped
Oh,
save
I'm
people
sure.
from losing their homes, from foreclosure and whatnot. That was actually recently too that happened. But one that really stands out is I'm really honored to serve our military families. I work a lot with military families. I'm a certified military relocation specialist. And so I have had the privilege of, giving back in that sense. I've
Oh,
had this
I
family.
appreciate that as a veteran
Yeah,
myself.
I know, and thank you for your service. Yes, it is. It is a true honor. And so, I've had families that, I've helped years ago that keep coming back to me because they trust me. And more recently, with the changes that happened recently with the new law or with the new rule, where sellers are not required to pay the buyer's agent compensation. Remember that came out August 17th of last
Right,
year. So sellers are not obligated. They never were, but it's just in how we present it.
right.
So this kind of came up when, this military family wanted to sell and then purchase. Um, Needless to say, they should have owed money at the end because of, with their mortgage and all that. But I was able to negotiate on the purchase of their property for the seller to pay both my commission for the sale of their home. So
Hmm.
the property that they were purchasing, I got him to pay for the sale of their home
Hmm.
plus my commission for the purchase of their
The
home.
purchase.
Right. So with that, tactful negotiation strategies, but it was just a blessing because they were expecting to pay about 20 grand out of pocket.
Wow.
And I was able to negotiate for them where they had nothing owed, and even got some money back towards closing costs. Because with VA loans, there's no down payment required,
Right.
100% financing. So just their closing costs. So
Well,
it's always
that's
it's always a
it,
win when I get money for people at
it,
closing.
yes, absolutely. I can tell how passionate you are about what you do, which is phenomenal in
Thank
itself.
you.
So as we wrap up, could you provide our listeners a way to get a hold of your phone number as well as your website?
Yes, yes. So we are, Alena at exitpremierlegacy.com. Our website and our domain, if anybody wants to look for homes and see what's available in our area, it's orlandolistingpros.com. And they'll be able to access all of our properties for sale there and in the area. My phone number is 407-801-8219. Text or a call. I'm fine with either. And yeah, I'm all over social media with those. Alena Rivera, Orlando Broker Alena.
You got to love it.
Yes, thank you.
Alena, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of
Thank
this.
you.
And hopefully we can have you back again in the near future.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
You're, ver-
Didier.
you're very welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to First Media Consulting Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe today. To nominate a business you would like to recommend to be on our show, go to firstmediaconsulting.com or call. Thank you for listening.